Hello, Year 12. This one was requested by some of my students, so I'm sharing it with all of you. This is just looking at O'Brien's words to Winston Smith in 1984 when O'Brien is talking to him about exactly what is power. And so he says, the party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We're not interested in the good of others. We're interested solely in power. Not wealth or luxury or long life or happiness. Only power, pure power. We're different from all the oligarchies of the past in that we know what we are doing. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. But always, do not forget this, Winston, always there'll be the intoxication of power constantly increasing and constantly growing subtler. Always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face. Forever. These words, for my part, are extraordinary. There is an element to this absolute power that goes beyond anything that we can imagine. And it reminds us, for me, it reminds me of the Machiavellian prince. If you remember, we did this when we looked at The Tempest, and the idea that Machiavelli puts forward is the person who has the power, or the person who usurps the power, is the person who deserves the power. And these words suggest that O'Brien, even though there's this horror in these words when he talks about how it is this absolute, this intoxicating power, there is this idea that he does deserve the power, or the inner party deserves that power, Big Brother deserves that power because of the Machiavellian prince. And this is what is the crux of Big Brother. To gain absolute power, the party creates systems that underpin a society so that the power is maintained. If we think of everything that's going on in the text, how they rewrite history, they bring in newspeak, they torture, they deprive their citizens of luxuries. They destroy existing institutions and replace it with new institutions so that they can continually have that power. If you remember what they say about the proles, the fact that the proles are ignorant, so that the proles can't rebel. And so we have this idea that if they take away that education, they don't have to control the proles anymore because the proles control themselves, so that that power is absolute. Like when Winston is first writing in his diary at the beginning, and he says there are no laws. They no longer need laws because everyone is so controlled. And yet he knows that if he writes that diary, he says it is punishable by death, or at least it'll go to the mines, to the labor camps. Sorry, not the mines, it's an allusion to the Soviet salt mines, but he'll go to the labor camps for 25 years. And so he knows that even though there's no law, there is a punishment for breaking away from that control. And this is what comes out in this speech by O'Brien. So we have to look at, okay, how do they get there? What techniques are going on? So firstly, we have this technique here, the accumulation, the building up of not wealth or luxury or long life or happiness. So it's called accumulation, and it's this building up of all the things that we as humans ordinarily would look for. We have a society where we do value wealth and we do value luxury, but we also, in addition to that, we want long life. It's associated with health, and we do want happiness. But for Big Brother, for the party, the inner party, it's not about that. It is about only power, pure power. That repetition of the power the whole way through, it just keeps being said over and over again. Then we have, if we go further down, we have this antimetaboly that is just, sorry, I'm just trying to highlight it for you. just here. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. Now, if we remember, an antimetaboly is there to draw attention to certain words and often is used to suggest that reality is not always what it seems. So we've got the repetition of establish, dictatorship, revolution, and it appears again in the second clause, revolution, establish, dictatorship. So we have the same words, but the order is reversed. And the antimetaboly reveals the full extent of Big Brother's power. The fact that Julia and Winston's revolution is controlled and not independent thought. Their rebellion is choreographed to further provide power. So remember, everything they do, even Goldstein's book, is to make them think that they can be part of the Brotherhood and that they can rebel, but it's being controlled. And it's to wheedle out those who may have some kind of semblance of humanity left so that Big Brother can take full control. You can link this to Metropolis and to Fredison's desire for the workers to rebel so that he can fight back and flood their city. You have this nice connection here, that intertextual connection. You also have what is going on here, but always, do not forget this, Winston, always there'll be intoxication of power. So here we have the Anakoluthon, where we have that grammatical break away from sentence structure. So, but always, do not forget this, Winston, always there'll be the intoxication of power. It's a really strong rhetorical device that brings us back to the idea that O'Brien is speaking to Winston, but he is also speaking to us, but it is this subtle reminder that Winston is there listening to all of this being said. Prospero in The Tempest uses it too when he keeps saying to Morena, are you listening to me? And he keeps breaking away from his delivery to her. So it's called Anakolothon. So again, it's to highlight this desire for power. And then we have this also what's going on. We have this repetition, always, always, always. In this instance, this is anaphora because we have the always just here, and then it's starting again in a second clause just here. So when it's within clauses, it becomes anaphora. So we have this anaphora of always to put the high modality, a use of high modality, a sense that this is not negotiable. And I know some of you picked up on the fact that the word seldom is often used by Winston or the narrator when describing what Winston is seeing from Winston's perspective. So we have this contrast in the two words. Winston's perspective of the world is things happen seldom, it's a low modality, as opposed to this always, which is high modality for O'Brien. And then we also have always, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. So you round it off with a tricolon as well to just take it that little bit more. And then, of course, you then have that imagery, that very vivid imagery. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. And so it gives this violent edge and this very vivid image of what their power looks like. And for me, it is a horrific power because there is nothing left. And that moment when Winston gives up everything and says, I love Big Brother at the end of the novel, you see that hope is lost. And it all stems from this desire for absolute power. Power that comes from complete control and oppression of others.